Okay, awesome. I'll just go over everything that I said just in case people missed it. And if you hear a dog howling in the background, I'm sorry, that is my puppy. So hi everyone, my name's Chloe and I'm an ethical hacker. I've been doing ethical hacking for just over a year and a half now. Prior to that, I didn't have any technical experience. I did a degree in criminology, so something completely different. And I'm relatively new to the cyber industry. I'm really excited to talk to you all today about what it takes to be an ethical hacker and a journey into a technical role. And I just want to say a big thanks to everyone for attending today. So giving a nod to my degree, I wanted to start things off in a very social scientist way by looking at the statistics about who are the people in cyber. What are the demographics that make up our industry in the UK specifically? And I found this to be quite tricky. I didn't find loads of statistics out there that looked at the demographics of the people that make up the cyber industry in the UK. There's quite a lot on women in STEM, but not so much about breaking down further granular than that. I did find the Decrypting Diversity report, which was produced in 2020 by the NCSC in partnership with KPMG, and it's the first report of its kind to look at diversity within the cyber industry. And it focused on 4 areas of diversity. So that was ethnicity, sexual orientation, gender identity, and socioeconomic background. And for this talk, I just wanted to hone in on the socioeconomic background, just because I thought it related the best to the content today. And this report highlighted target areas that I believe in cybersecurity that we should all be aware of. And also, hopefully it should provide you with some food for thought on what types of people are potentially missing out on some awesome cybersecurity careers. So I'm not going to go into loads of detail. So if you wanted to go into the report a little bit more, you can find it on the NCSC website. But the findings suggest that those working in cybersecurity tend not to come from lower socioeconomic backgrounds, with a greater proportion having attended fee-paying schools within the UK. So I thought this was really interesting, especially from my own experience within school, but also when I became an ethical hacker, I started to do a lot of insight events at schools, just trying to raise awareness about what I do in amongst children, but especially amongst teachers, because I found that the children didn't know, but maybe even worse, the teachers didn't know what I did, or quite about a lot of different careers that exist within cyber. So I think it's really important that teachers, children and parents recognise the skills that are needed in order to enter the cyber industry. And it also gives them more opportunities, regardless of whether they want to enter the cyber industry on leaving university or when they progress into their professional careers. So a thing that came up quite a lot in my research was a cyber skills gap within the UK. So is there a cyber skills gap? So the Decrypting Diversity report says that the UK faces a widely documented cyber skills gap, which I think you might have seen quite a lot of, because there's numerous of news outlets that report about a cyber skills gap within the UK currently. And digital resilience is becoming increasingly central to our economic and social future, which I couldn't agree more with. Yet this year alone, the Department of Digital Culture, Media and Sport found that 653,300 UK businesses have a basic cyber skills gap, which I thought to be quite astounding, really. So then exploring this a bit more further, getting a bit more in depth, I found this report called Disconnected, which was produced by the Learning Work Institute in partnership with Ingenuity. And this explores the digital skills gap. So it's worth noting that this is talking about a digital skills gap, not specifically cyber, but I think this overlaps very much so. And it confirms the importance of digital skills within the UK economy, but also helps us to understand those supply and demand issues between the points of view of young people and employers. So young people are digital natives that have grown up surrounded by digital technology, which I couldn't agree more with. And the majority, that's 62%, are confident that they have the basic digital skills that employers need. However, fewer than 1 in 5, that's 18% of young people, are very confident that they had advanced digital skills that employers need. So I thought this was really interesting. before I found out about ethical hacking, I definitely would have put myself in the not having confidence with advanced digital skills category. For example, I didn't know what coding was. I didn't know how to code. That wasn't something that was taught to me in high school. And it was something that I kind of just picked up when I started doing ethical hacking. And I think it's even more important now that kids are being immersed more in tech, increasingly use more and more advanced tech day to day, but they're not really being taught what's under the hood of that technology. And schools, especially within the UK, not tapping into that potential early on. Which brings me on to raising awareness and harnessing potential. So it would be really great if we could try and step out of this mentality. And I believe it starts with schooling and parental awareness, as I said before. So when I joined ethical hacking, this is when all of these ideas about raising awareness and harnessing potential kind of came to me. Because I'm surrounded daily by some amazing creative minds that want to understand the why of what they're doing all the time. And it wasn't a way of thinking that I was privy to when I was growing up. And that's no one's fault. It just wasn't encouraged within me when I was a kid. And it wasn't something that I just did, like quite a lot of people who are in technical industries have. And I think instead of just encouraging the thinking about the why within chemistry, biology, and physics, the science behind what you're doing, we should start encouraging it within tech as well. Computer science shouldn't just be an option. I think whether that be making it compulsory, I'm not sure, but definitely giving kids more technical skills that are necessary to join the cyber industry early on, even early as primary school. So I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. This is a very magnified example, but illustrates my point nevertheless. So this is Thomas Suarez. I think I'm pronouncing his last name correctly, but this is him giving a TED talk at 12 years of age. And he is very into app development. So prior to that, he was very interested in playing games on his iPad, but he wanted to understand how these games are working and how he could create them himself. So he set out developing apps. And he developed an app called Bustin' Jeeber, which is a Justin Bieber whack-a-mole game in response to a lot of the kids in his school not particularly liking Justin Bieber. And he released this just before the holidays. And it did really, really well. So if you want to check out his TED talk, I would highly recommend. It's not that long as well. And one of the key points that he touched upon within his TED talk was that if kids want to play football, they'll go to football club. I think he referred to it as soccer though. If kids want to do arts and crafts, they'll go to arts and crafts club. And there's lots of different options out there. But when it came to tech or app development that he was talking about in his case, there wasn't anywhere for kids to go to start learning these skills, which I just thought is such an easy win. And it was definitely something that I found true in my school. There wasn't anywhere that you could go to start developing these types of skills, and it wasn't easily accessible. It was just something that you kind of had to research within your own time at home. So I think we need to be more forward thinking. Thomas set up his own app club within his schools and has also done a lot of campaigns to set up various app development clubs across schools from where he's from. So it would be great if we could do something similar. So that brings me on to my journey and why do I really care about all this stuff? So like I said, I'm non-technical, non-tech was before, and I studied criminology at Cardiff University. I've always had a fascination with human behaviour, which carries through to this day, and I do various bits of research into cyber criminality alongside my day job. But when I left university, I really didn't know what to do. As much as I enjoyed my degree, it left me feeling confused about what the next steps were, and I think quite a lot of people feel like that when they leave university. And because I didn't know what I wanted to do, and there was lots of people around me that did know what they wanted to do and they were going full force at their careers, it made me feel quite unsuccessful. and that I was missing the boat quite a lot, and questioned myself and a lot of things when I left university. So I set out to research all of the different options out there of the type of person that I wanted to be. And I came across my employer, who were offering a ethical hacking graduate scheme to people that had had no technical experience. Now, I knew stuff about the cyber threat landscape because of my degree, touched upon it in a couple of modules, but didn't have any of the technical knowledge. So I decided to go for it. And after a 5-stage interview process, I got the job, which was amazing. But those opportunities don't come around so often. And I know that the opportunity that I was given was they're few and far between for those that have no technical experience. And also, I think I've got really lucky in some cases for being in the right place in the right time. They happen to be expanding that team in my hometown. And prior to that, I'd never heard of ethical hacking before. So I wish I'd known about it sooner so that I could develop those skills. And this is why I set about raising awareness and doing what I'm doing and giving my talk today. But it hasn't always been a completely easy ride. And this brings me on to imposter syndrome and confidence within my job. And I've definitely suffered from imposter syndrome and confidence when coming into the industry, and still sometimes suffer with it from today. But I've learned a lot. So I wanted to share it with you. So because I'm not your usual techie, and because I haven't really grown up with a huge fascination about computers, I kind of struggled when it came to am I in the right place, and am I the right person to be doing this job? And from talking from my colleagues who have had similar journeys to me that aren't directly technical, they have shared that they have had similar experiences to me, which I thought was really worth noting. And I think what I've come to learn is that, no, I'm not your usual techie, but I bring a lot of other skills to bear within my job. And if I'm part of diversifying the industry so that it's not just people that have been and developed their technical skills their whole life, but they've gone out and done other things outside of that, and they can bring those to the cyber industry, then so be it. And I'm slowly learning that I am very much a valued member of my team because of my varied skill set, not just being a completely technical person, which is great. So what if somebody wanted to enter the industry? Particularly, I'm going to talk about ethical hacking because obviously that is what I would do. And what should you be focusing on if you want to upskill within this area? So what I wanted to do is just talk about the training program that I was on, which I believe was around 8 months. And it covered 4 modules. Now this learning curve was steep. If you can imagine, I had never coded before. And then I had to go on to building enumeration scripts for Linux operating systems and doing the same in PowerShell and all of this stuff. So it was very steep. It was challenging, rewarding, and I'm so glad that I stuck it out and got through it. So first thing, networking fundamentals, then went on to web and databases, Linux operating system and Windows operating systems. So networking was just getting those basics down, understanding the OSI model. Anyone that's in cyber would know what the OSI model is, but then IP protocols and all of the different protocols and how they fit into the OSI model. So that was the first thing that we did. Then looking at network architecture. So we had a chance to build our own networks and do various attacks over the network, for example, ARP poisoning or DHCP starvation, that sort of stuff, which was really fun. Then getting a bit more granular, and me at the time thinking, oh my goodness, what is going on? Doing a bit of escapee, crafting various packets. For example, we crafted some ICMP packets and then did some ping scans over the network, and then analyzing different network packets using Wireshark, which becomes really handy later on. So that was networking, very much just getting the basic down, but all in that wrapper of ethical hacking. So how can these protocols be exploited? They're not built with security in mind, so what can we do with them? Moving on to web and databases, which I think was one of the funnest, but also one of the hardest. So just starting off with backend servers. So when you are doing a web application test, for example, when you see that a site is hosted on an Apache server, understanding that, how can you exploit that? Nginx, and same for Microsoft IIS as well. So understanding those, and we had a chance to do some web development here. So building websites, very basic and purposefully poorly designed, insecure websites, hosting them on our networks that we had previously built, and then attacking them. So it was all an incremental process where the skills were building on more and more and more. So yeah, getting the chance to build our own websites was awesome. And then having a look at various exploitation techniques, and I could go on forever when it comes to that. And then once understanding how those exploits work, making sure that we've got that nailed, we were then allowed to use tools. We weren't allowed to use tools unless we knew how the exploits work and that we knew how the tools themselves were working. And that was really key. So for example, SQL map, we needed to prove that we could craft an SQL query, understand the backend database behind it, and then we had to prove that we could understand how SQL map was working, so that we don't just go out on a client and start hammering their applications or networks with tools that we have no idea how they're working. So that was web and databases. I'm just going to check in on the time, guys. Cool. We're on the schedule. So moving on to Linux, just in a nutshell, basically we needed to know, once we got on a Linux box, how do you enumerate it? So that came down to looking at file ownership, file permissions, cron jobs, how to edit cron jobs, and then looking at the password and shadow files, and password cracking, and then getting to grips with different password cracking tools like Hashcat, and then brute forcing using tools like Hydra, which were really fun. And we used Nmap before, because that's kind of your ethical hackers' bread and butter is Nmap, and we used that when we were doing different things for web, but really getting into Nmap really, and understanding all of the different scripts that are on there and stuff like that. And like I said earlier, at the end, we built our own enumeration scripts that would that we could run on a Linux box and pull out loads of different information that we wanted. And the last module was Windows, the one that I found the hardest, the one that I still find hard today and that I'm still working on, is Windows. So we started off just having a history of Windows, where it was, where it's become, and then the major exploits. So I've got a turtle blue on there, of course. And then understanding Microsoft Active Directory, what fun. And looking at different group policies and spending a whole lot of time applying group policies to things in Active Directory. And thought I was going to cry that day, but we got through it. And then moving on to PowerShell, which oddly enough, I really enjoyed scripting in PowerShell, built our own enumeration scripts in PowerShell, and then running them on different Windows boxes. So that was a really quick race through of what the ethical hacking training program covered, but I wanted to give you just that overarching view so that you could get what I believe were the main points out of that if you wanted to go and start developing those skills. So closing up now, the future. I've talked about a lot of things today. I've talked about the industry, my journey, and then ethical hacking, and the journey that I went on there. But I just wanted to take this chance now to deliver my message as clearly as I can. So I believe the cyber industry would benefit massively from diversifying. And in order to do this, we need to raise awareness of what we do. We need to get out there and tell people about what we do. And we need to do this amongst children, but also, just as important, teachers and parents. There needs to be a bigger push within schools to inspire children to think about tech in a way that attempts to understand the why, not just basic usage. We should be moving on from that now. And the way, and that way we can bring more people into the industry and tackle this so-called cyber skills gap early on. Well, I'm talking primary school, getting them on Raspberry Pis and that just being a standard thing that we do in primary schools. And then finally, it would be great to see more businesses employ people into technical roles from non-technical backgrounds, very much like myself, and be willing to invest in people to develop these skills. Because I honestly don't know where I would have been today if I hadn't had that opportunity to become an ethical hacker. So thank you everyone for listening, and sorry about the technical difficulties. If anyone's got any questions, that would be great. Those are my social media handles, and thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Chloe. That was fantastic. We do have a couple questions for you. Atomic is muted, so I'll go ahead and get started with the first one. And the first question is, what should schools do to harness young people's potential?
So I touched upon it a few, but I think we need to start off earlier. So that's in primary school. I believe that kids have the understanding and they have the potential to start learning this stuff really early on. And making it fun. So for example, I said about Raspberry Pis, and I think that maybe even teachers, when they're in teacher training or something like that, they need to be aware of how important these skills are as well. So I think that's what we should be doing. But I think what we can do in the industry is get out there and tell people about what we do. And if, you know, instead of just saying, because I get it so many times, like, oh, people are like, well, what do you do? And I'm like, well, I do this, and this is really important. And, you know, tell your kids about it. So yeah.
So Mike, would you like to introduce the second question?
Sure. So you've gone a lot about the various tools, you know, you've had to learn during your 8-month adventure. I guess we can call it that way. So now that you've gone through those tools that are a bit of a groundwork, that are a little bit more interactive, etc., what are the most common tools you would use now as an ethical hacker?
Yeah, great question. Depends on the engagement, but let's just take web application testing. Burp is very much a tool that we use all the time. If we're doing an INF test, it's Nmap. So heavily rely on Nmap for that, just makes life so much easier. And yeah, red teaming, things like Nessus or Cobalt Strike, which are the ones I didn't mention before. So it very much depends on the engagement that you're on, but I would say Burp is the #1, closely followed by Nmap.
Awesome. We might have another one coming in clutch.
Yeah.
Well, you can ask it.
Okay, so I'm just going to ask it. I won't type it out. So do you have any advice for aspiring ethical hackers or women specifically looking to get started in technology or ethical hacking?
Yes. I will take this question as what advice I would give myself starting out. So when I was doing the interview process, I remember being like, okay, what's coding? What is this all about? So start there. Start getting that understanding of coding and getting comfortable with that way of thinking, because it's very different. So that's where I would start if you haven't had exposure to that already. If you have, then start researching different types of resources that can help you when it comes to understanding how to think like an ethical hacker. Now, I think if you're a beginner, things like Hack the Box might be a bit too hard, but it wouldn't hurt just looking at different YouTube videos of how to complete different exercises that are out there. There's so many different resources that you can find, and I wish that I had known about them before I'd applied, or if I wanted to get into it. What else would I say? Oh, and then just like basic, how do you build a computer? That would really help. What are ports? Like that basic stuff. So yeah.
Awesome.
Yes, thank you so much for your time and your talk. It was fantastic. Lots of good feedback there.
Awesome. I'm so sorry about the technical difficulties.
Oh, no worries.
It happens.
So it's okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you again.